Thank you all so much for being here. If you've missed previous Humankind events, you can view them on our website, which is humankindwscc.org. As you may know, our theme for this academic year is movement. So we talked about things like moving steel across lakes and railroads and moving up in social classes. Tonight, we're going to talk about a social movement that's been taking place across our country and this world. You might see it most clearly in the workplace, with lots of employers and industries creating DEI initiatives. But the basic ideas of diversity, equity, and inclusion extend far beyond the workplace and matter in our friendships, religious institutions, and families as well. So let me introduce tonight's presenters. Griffin is a health educator and program coordinator at District Health Department number 10 in Baldwin, and she works to prevent youth problem behaviors like dropping out of school. Shawn Washington is the social worker case manager at Northern Lakes Community Mental Health in Cadillac and the president of the Board of Education for Baldwin Community Schools. Thank you both so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Renee, for having us. All right. Oops. So if you no, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and get started, feel free to share your screen, and I'm just going to drop out here. But if you need anything, I will be here.
All right. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys all for sharing your evening with us. I'm thankful to have you all in this space. Even though virtual, it still feels very warm and welcoming to have all of you here with us. I am going to share my screen. Maybe.
As Qu'ran is working on that, I'll just kind of talk about, we would like to be able to use the chat feature this evening. So throughout the presentation, we may pose a question or you may have a question. Please feel free to put it into the chat and we will be monitoring that. We'll do our very best to monitor that and be able to answer any questions or go back over any information that was presented.
Thank you so much, Shawn. So our presentation today, I've got to work on moving you guys out the way. Hold on. In my screen, in my view. All right. So today we are going to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so we titled our presentation, Who's Invited to the Party? Because diversity is much like a party, like having everybody there who's invited to the party. Equity means who gets to contribute to the playlist. So we want everybody to contribute something to our presentation this evening. And inclusion means that everybody has an opportunity to dance. So we hope that you all use your voice and share in with us today. My name again is Qu'ran Griffin, and I have my partner in good trouble with me, Shawn Ware. And thank you guys again for having us, and thank you to Shore Community College for having us on their platform. So mic check, who's in the room? Are you students, you faculty, community folks, or just friends and family that Shawn and I got to jump on here with us? Go ahead and chime in.
Christopher is a student, or was a student. Let's see. Okay.
All right, so it looks like we have a good amount of students, got some faculty. Thank you for being here. Some community folks, thank you so much, community members, for being here. And then a few of our friends and family, thank you guys so much for being here. You guys all rock and make our party worthwhile. So we have a couple learning objectives this evening. We hope that you all learned something new. We hope to present to you so that you gain a better understanding of how to meet people where they are. And then we will work with you to establish a personal call to action so that you walk away with some tips and tools that you can use to create more diversity and inclusion in your life. We also like to take a moment to acknowledge the social movements that brought us here today. So we're going to take just 15 seconds of quiet to go ahead and reflect on how we got here, why this conversation is important, and how we're going to use this in our daily lives. And I've got a quick timer. So our 15 seconds of reflection will start now. Thank you for that. We also like to acknowledge that these conversations are raw and emotional for everyone, but particularly for those that have experienced hate or discrimination. Everyone's contribution to these conversations are shaped by their own individual beliefs, values, and experiences in life. Everyone also may be at different levels of awareness and understanding about race, bigotry, racism, ableism, and homophobia. And it's not always easy to see something from others' perspective. So we get that, and we're here with you. I just want us to acknowledge that and be patient with one another, be kind with one another, be kind with our words. And let's get into it. So our first topic is unconscious. Sorry, my screen is kind of obstructed. Oops, sorry guys. Our first conversation is going to be on unconscious and implicit bias. This refers to attitudes and beliefs that occur outside our conscious awareness and control. One's age and gender, their identity, their physical abilities, their religion, sexual orientation, weight, and many other characteristics are subject to bias. Unconscious biases are social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside of their own conscious awareness. An example of unconscious bias may be that women are weak and that men are strong. It's important that we don't make judgments about one's abilities or beliefs, their status, their attraction, or their orientations simply based on their physical characteristics. And rather than focusing on stereotypes to define people, in order to reduce implicit bias, it's important that we see people for who they are, that we don't define them by what they look like. See people as individuals, and then work on that, consciously trying to change those stereotypes. And think about, where does this come from? Pause and reflect on, why would I think this way? And then adjust your perspective. Try seeing things from another person's point of view. How would you respond if you were in position of that person? And then increase your exposure. Seat yourself with different people. Talk to people who you wouldn't normally talk to, maybe people that don't look like you or come from the same community that you do. Speak with people from different racial backgrounds, learn about their culture, attend different community events that you didn't ever think to go to. Check out exhibits that may be at the library or at a community center. It's important that we practice these open mindfulness practices that create awareness and light and understanding about one another. You can also try things like yoga and meditation or focused breathing to increase your mindfulness, and then become more aware of where these thoughts are coming from. Why am I unconsciously thinking of people in these ways? These kind of practices will help reduce some of those stereotypes. And then again, opening to yourself to meeting other people and asking and starting conversation, asking questions will help reduce a lot of those unconscious bias and those things that are kind of preconceived in our brains. Addressing microaggressions. What is a microaggression? Microaggressions are incidents in which somebody accidentally or on purpose makes an offensive statement or asks an insensitive question. They are defined as verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults targeted at a person or group. So an example of a microaggression may be, I don't see color. In the chat, somebody tell me why it would be important to see color. To acknowledge that European Americans are becoming a minority. All right, Christopher, thank you. The goal is to actually see and recognize that we're all humans. It's not to see that we are defined by our color, but it is for us to control and regulate that impulse, that makes us make decisions based on somebody's physical characteristic. Sherry says that color is a part of who a person is. Very good. To not see color means to not see the person. Very good. Yeah, so to say that you don't see color means that you're not even recognizing who I am as a person. You're missing a whole big part of who that person is. Very good. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And microaggressions can also make it very difficult for somebody to speak up. It kind of comes out of the left field like, whoa, that was insensitive. And it may make it hard for that person to even move forward. Suggesting that somebody tighten up their bootstraps and work harder. Well, what if that person doesn't have boots? Suggesting that someone speaks excellent English. Well, why would I not speak excellent English? So making assumptions about someone without really knowing who they are or knowing about their background could be offensive. So if you see this happening, or even if you're the one that makes an insensitive comment, because we all could be subjected to doing so. It's important. I found this cool kind of acronym that's called CARES, C-A-R-E-S. Consider how that would make a person feel and consider how maybe the comment was harmful, and then be accountable for your actions and be willing to apologize if you're the person who made the comment. And even if you're the person that received the comment, say, whoa, I'm sorry, that was harmful. And then rethink the harmful assumption and stereotype and have a conversation, ask questions. This is where we do most of our learning. Empathize with those on the receiving end of the microaggression. Think about how you would feel if the comment was made to you or if an off-color comment was made to you. It could be hurtful. And then support by offering resources and asking how you can help. If there's a person that doesn't have boots to strap up and tighten up and work harder, work with them on how to get boots. It's important.
I just want to acknowledge that Christopher had a question. It's a really good question, and thank you, Christopher. And if you don't mind, I can
go ahead.
Provide some.
Please, I can't see the chat, so yeah, go ahead.
So Christopher says, how is All Lives Matter a microaggression? He said he's never been able to figure that out. Christopher, that is such a good question. And I was anticipating, to be honest with you, that might become a question. And so on my drive here, I formulated this story or scenario in my mind. So imagine that we have different types of bears. There are polar bears, black bears, grizzly bears, and panda bears, right? And I can recall, I think there was a time where panda bears were kind of extinct. So when panda bears are extinct, or when a certain group of particular person, this year we're talking about an animal, this is how I'm making the story go. So you need to find out the root cause, or why panda bears are disappearing. Why are they being hunted or harmed? And you just have to figure that out, right? So that becomes a movement. We have people who will put forth money and research and awareness about the plight of the panda bear, because we want panda bears to be able to live in their natural environment, to thrive, to reproduce. And so people can go to the zoo and see panda bears, right? So we never hear the polar bear or the grizzly bear or the black bear groups of people say, well, you know, all bears matter. That is true. All bears do matter. But at this particular point in time, we're trying to help the plight of the panda bears, because we need that particular group of bears to make sure that they have the same access to happiness, health, and life, and to be able to live well. So I hope that little story kind of makes it a little bit different when you hear Black Lives Matter movement versus how offensive it can be when you say all lives matter.
Thank you, Shawn. That was an amazing story. And I hope that helped give some clarity to why the statement all lives matter could be perceived as a microaggression or hurtful. It's not that all lives don't matter, they absolutely do. But at this point in time, there's a certain group of people that are being marginalized. And it's important that we recognize that. So thank you so much. So we want to interact with you guys as much as possible, and Zoom makes it feel really weird, and I'm really just staring at a computer screen, which I wish I was staring at your faces. However, here we are, and we're using our computers in the best ways we know how, and our phones. So in the chat, please share with us an example of diversity in your community. And when I say your community, I don't mean the place in which you live. I mean the people in which you hang out with, those that you call your friends, your kind of immediate circle that you travel in. Share with me what kind of diversity is in your group of people, your own little community. And again, if you, Shawn, you could watch the chat.
Yep, I just want to follow up to Christopher, and then George had a comment as well related to the last question. But doesn't saying all bears matter include panda bears matter? And then George commented, microaggressions are not only to marginalized groups, which is in important detail. And then Christopher replied he has some Cherokee friends.
Right. So it's important, microaggressions can happen to anyone. And it's important that we call them out so that they don't continue to happen, because they're offensive. So it's not that it's to any particular person, but to any group of people that are experiencing the kind of hostile or derogatory statements coming their way. It's important that they're called out.
Samantha's, I have experienced differences in family or cultural traditions among many of her friends. Sherry, family includes Hispanic. Most of my community is white. Patty, older to younger age men and women.
Amen. And that feels good to have this diverse group of people to give us a diverse perspective in life. We all can have the opportunity to learn from others. It's important that we ask questions, that we get different experiences and garner support from these folks and learn from these folks and share from these folks. That's how we become a more whole person and a more diverse person by interacting with other folks from other communities. So amazing. I hate that I can't see the chat, but if I see the chat, I lose sight of where we are.
That's okay. Amber says, I am white, but married into a Hispanic family. I love them all and love seeing their culture, enjoying the food, smiles. I also have a friend from Tijuana and friends from many different backgrounds. So I feel so lucky to know them all. Is that time? I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Great. That's amazing. And when we get to open up our hearts and open up our minds to people who didn't grow up the same way that we do, maybe they come from different economic backgrounds than we do. They could come from different social classes or different parts of the state even. I mean, us as a folks are completely different than the people that live on the other side of the bridge. There's whole other ways of life. So there's a multitude of diversity out there. It doesn't have to do just with race or religion or class or culture. There's a multitude of things that make us different and make us whole at the same time, and that add to the characteristics of who we are. But it's important to share those. And so we get to have a better understanding of one another and create more light around each other. Thank you guys so much for sharing. So that brings us to diversity. It's more than just acknowledging or tolerating each other's differences. It's a set of conscious practices that involve understanding and appreciating humanity, cultures, and living and non-living things. Practicing mutual respect for qualities and experiences that are different from our own, and recognizing that age, ethnicity, class, gender, physical abilities or qualities, race, sexual orientation, as well as religious status, gender expression, educational background, geographical location, income, marital status, parental status, and work experiences all make us whole. And recognizing too that personal, cultural, and institutionalized discrimination creates and sustains privileges for some while creating and sustaining disadvantages for others. It's important that we acknowledge differences can be fluid. We respect individuals' right to self-identify, and we also recognize that no one culture is intrinsically superior to another. Again, that diversity just makes us the human race. We are extraordinarily different in so many ways, yet at the basic level, we're all the same human species. We experience highs and lows in life, but ultimately, we're just striving to be happy and fulfilled. We have common joys and pains, but these are some of the things that bring us together. But it is our diversity that makes us unique in our own individual selves. It's important that we embrace our differences. Everybody has their own story. Consider your own life and everything that has shaped you and your beliefs. We understand that there are 7 billion people on this planet and not one of us is made the same. We each have our own story and our own narrative. And in embracing your diversity, think about where you're coming from. When you find yourself thinking poorly of someone else or developing a negative stereotype, consider what influences have created these views of that individual. Again, befriend all people. It's important that we understand that if we befriend only certain groups of people, that we kind of keep ourselves sheltered. So we want to open ourselves to try new things, to reach across the aisle, to have discussions and conversations that could sometimes feel uncomfortable. That's where the most growth happens, when you're in discomfort. We also must empathize with one another more. When you encounter anyone, imagine or try to understand or sympathize with that person's story. Put yourself in that person who didn't have any boots. If I were in their position, how would I help them get boots? Or how would I go about getting boots if I didn't have boots to tighten up and work harder? Open those resources, open some of those doors to people. Really empathize with that story and help make you better understand how you can be an ally or be a support to other people. And then actively accept. It's important to like meditate upon embracing other people who come from diverse backgrounds. Don't allow yourself to be based upon stereotypes or allow yourself to think about people based upon stereotypes. Accept that we are all complex, we're different. Acknowledge that our differences make us who we are, and that it's important that we have conversations to seek understanding. And then that these conversations, again, may be difficult, but we have to challenge those stereotypes and we have to be willing and open to have conversation. I am going to now pass it to Shawn, and she's going to talk with you guys about inclusion.
All right, she's going to pass the mic, and welcome to the continuation of our party. I really wish we had like music. I really wish I had my theme music to kind of play as my intro, but just imagine yourself, you're at the party and you know what? Your favorite song comes on. It's time to hit the dance floor right now. So get to tapping that foot and have that favorite song playing right now along in your head. So Qu'ran gave us a great introduction, right, to diversity and how we can embrace it and kind of what that means. So we're going to move right into, once it's established, that diversity of age, diversity of gender, diversity of religion, diversity of where I live is all important when we want to get something done. So if I wanted to have a party, I want to make sure I invite like a wide variety of people, right? So you need different people that will, really liven up your party, right? So this is what we want to do with inclusion. We want to make sure that we're bringing all types of people to the table, all types of people to our workforce, all type of people to sit with us at our lunch table, all types of people to do whatever it is that we want to see be done, because inclusion is so closely related to a sense of belonging. Who doesn't want to belong? Who doesn't want to fit in? I really think we should go back and kind of watch kindergartners and kids do this stuff, because they do this probably better than the adults do it right now. Everyone just wants to fit in. We want to be accepted for who we are. We want to be accepted, whether I'm walking on 2 feet or where I'm in a wheelchair. That doesn't change my character. It doesn't change my integrity. It doesn't change that I deserve respect because I'm in a wheelchair versus someone who may be walking. And this is what we want to make sure that we're harnessing and that we're recognizing, that is about respect and connections. So before I leave the slide, I want to ask you a quick question. So would you recognize an area, or can you, or have you, or do you recognize any areas maybe in your work or your professional or personal life where you think inclusion may be lacking? And you can just kind of throw that in the chat, and I'll jump to the next slide and we can pick that up if you do have something. So many of you maybe have been used to seeing an equity photo. Traditionally, we probably see it, right, where the people are standing at the fence, right? And you got the boxes. So you know what? Tear the fence down. Who needs a fence? You know what? We're about not having any barriers, right? So here is a newer picture, and I encourage you to maybe adopt this one. So we think about, everybody's equal. The idea sounds good, right? But we're all different, right? We have different needs. I don't have the need to push the electric door, right, to open it up for handicap. I don't have a need to. So I wouldn't need to use it. But that doesn't mean that we should not have it at the door, right? Because someone else needs to have it. So as you look at the picture, we see to make things equitable, we give people what they need in order to be happy, to be successful, and to accomplish their goals.
So Shawn, there is a question in the chat. It says, do you think the English touring opera did it wrong when they let go of about half of their musicians to increase diversity the next year?
You know, I am not familiar with that. So Christopher, are you able, I think that's Christopher, are you able to drop a little bit more knowledge in there? So you said they got rid of half of their musicians but they added more people. So they got rid of some and then added some more people to the opera. You want to do next slide and then ask he responds to that. We can, and he can add that in the chat.
Will do.
All right. So my thing is, and I'll speak from experience, Christopher, because let's just say that the opera was all male, right? All white and all male. And say there are little girls out there who want to be a part of the opera, but they never see an opportunity for females because they always see males. So would I think that maybe adding diversity to add females to an opera would be a good idea? Yeah, I would, because that inspires young people, little people, to see themselves in all areas and aspects of life. And why would we not want little girls to say, hey, I could be in the opera, or little girls to say, hey, I can be an astronaut. So diversity is really about building hope, and to letting other people know that you may not see yourself in one particular area, but you still belong there. Does that make sense?
Christopher went on to say, from what I read, they decided to hire non-whites for next year's tour, so they didn't renew the contract for half of their musicians.
Okay. Well, I don't know how they manage that, but I think a good mixture, maybe they can alternate and be able to get all the people. If there's 50 people in the opera, maybe they can mix that up on the tour and add different people in. But I think accurate representation of all people, no matter what your abilities are, no matter what your sexual orientation is, your language, your gender identification, I still think it's important that as a whole, people are represented and able to see themselves in people who look like them or identify as they do in every platform. I'll tell you a quick story and then we'll go into intersectionality when we talk about this. So we live in Northern Michigan, right? And so I have a daughter who's 18 now, but when she was younger, we always watched the news. That's just kind of what we did. She never saw any African-American newscasters, Black, male or female. She just never seen that. She didn't desire to be a newscaster, but she just recognized, like, gosh, I never see anybody on TV. So I have to chuckle because, kids just notice these things. So it wasn't until later on when we made trips to like downstate, where you have more variety, that she was like, wow, I didn't even know that there were even Black news people. So here's an example of why it's so important to make sure we have accurate representation of all people, not just Black people, but our Asian Americans, our Latinx, just all people need to be represented in all areas of life that we work in. And
it's also about providing opportunity to people. Once we open those doors, we don't know how much better the opera could have been. Now, if the opera went downhill and things went awry, then maybe they need to refigure that. But providing an opportunity for things to grow and grow in different directions, and again, like Shawn said, have representation. Who knows if more people now open their mind to operas? or open their existence to something new and different that they never thought that they would try, simply because somebody looks like them now plays in the opera. So it's important that we're able to share those experiences, where if it just stayed one person, one color, one height, you know, if it just stayed like that, then maybe other people wouldn't be open to that. Angela has a comment. It seems like firing people because of their color, white or non-white, is discrimination. That is discrimination. They should have hired other races as opening becoming available. And I don't know the context of that, and we are just getting Chris's perspective. There could have been more nuances to that story. I don't know. But again, to open the conversation and open opportunity to all people just opens new opportunities and new exciting things to folks. Go ahead, Shawn.
I would say it would be like a hiring process, right? Because you are employed if you're in the opera, and I'm pretty sure every year there are probably all types of people, right, who would audition for the opera, just like the Rockettes in New York City. Every year they hold auditions and people try out. And sometimes because you may not fit the look of an opera or a Rockette, you are not hired, but you are equally qualified, equally as good as other people, and never get the opportunity. So we just want to make sure that we're talking about access. We both agree that, you know, firing somebody based on a discriminatory factor is discrimination, but we want to make sure that all people have access. And I think when we have an opportunity to address our unconscious biases and our implicit biases, we then open ourselves up, right, to be able to see where, wow, you know what? Traditionally, that may not be someone who we would thought would be an awesome opera singer, but this person, right, is great. And what if they did blind auditions, like literally blind auditions, right? Where you couldn't see what the person looked like, you could only hear what they sounded. Then, kind of like The Voice, right? Then you turn around, then what is our reasoning for not hiring that person when we had no idea what they looked like and we went off sheer talent? That would be interesting.
That would be great.
It would be. Intersectionality. So this is the section where we kind of try to bring it together, and we have a very short video that we would like to share. We don't have any sound with this one, I don't think.
All right.
Would you like me to play the video? Maybe we'll get some sound through a different computer, or?
We didn't catch that. I don't know if Qu'ran heard you.
Oh, would you like me to attempt to play the video? Or screen share?
Could you still not hear it?
No,
Nope.
Renee can try to play it.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
You want me to stop sharing, Renee?
I will take it from you.
Okay.
Christopher dropped the link in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Christopher. We'll read more about that. Rich discussion is always helpful. Can't hear it, Renee.
Still, huh?
Still.
Okay.
That's okay. Maybe we can just jot it down in the name of in the chat. And so it's just a 55-second video. So if we can't hear it tonight, that's definitely something that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
We'll have
it's
to
okay.
arrange that differently next time.
No, that's okay.
All right, so I'll go back to sharing my screen.
Yep. Thank you, Renee, for dropping that in there. All right, so how do we invite people to the party? So we really want to move beyond just having diversity in the space. And I just really want to help people. Having diversity doesn't take anything from you, right? So having diversity at my party doesn't personally take anything from me as a person. Like, I'm still going to be awesome. Like, it's still going to be my birthday party, even if I invite people, and no matter, you know, from what background they come from, no matter what they look like, it's still my party and it's still my birthday. So there's no harm that'll come from us by creating diverse spaces. Really, it only adds to us as a person, because we get to learn and we get to grow someone else and grow each other. So to create an equitable environment where the richness of ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives are harnesses, this is where each person can be authentically valued, respected, and supported. Remember, these are the things we want to create. Most of us, when you're young, we grew up with learning how to say thank you and no thank you, and having those basic manners. And I really think that now is really what we're trying to help people to get back to, is just being able to see a person for what they bring to the table, and it's okay. There's enough space at the table for all of us. There's enough pie for all of us to eat, and we're able to share and be safe in one single space. So creating a more inclusive space, use thoughtful language, right? So language, we're just being mindful. Qu'ran spoke a little bit earlier about being mindful. Still, it doesn't take anything from you to be kind. Remember, this is the Humankind series. So it says something about when you get back to being human, and we need to be back to being kind, right? Learn about and eliminate the use of microaggressions. So some of the microaggressions that I've heard as a Black woman is that, oh, you don't sound Black. Well, I'm not really sure what that means, but I've heard that. I've heard of, oh, you're so articulate. Okay. And I also heard, oh gosh, well, your kids are so well behaved. So those are some of the microaggressions I've heard that have been directed at me and said to me, or people have automatically put me in a certain zip code or location because of how I look. So those are some things that you just be mindful when you're in spaces and you're having conversations, or you're learning to have conversations with people. Ask questions, make no assumptions, and guess what? Listen. And guess what? Don't listen to speak next, or don't listen so you can defend yourself. Just listen. Just listen to learn. You never know. My grandma, somebody's grandma said you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. My grandma probably did say that. Is it possible that they are just being interpreted that way? So George, that's a really good question. So let me share another story with you. So sometimes you could hear things and they can be interpreted to be different, right? But sometimes you could hear things and feel it at the same time. And it's really hard if you have not been in that space or that position before. But for me, to have heard those particular microaggressions, I felt that. Like I felt that in my soul, that there was a low expectation that I wasn't going to speak well because I'm supposed to sound Black, whatever that is supposed to sound like. But we can kind of get an idea of what we think that might sound like because we, media and music and things like that. So you probably got a kind of an idea of where they might have been going to with that. And then just, so some of those comments come from stereotypes. And so if you're aware of those stereotypes and then someone makes those kind of comments, you can kind of put those two together and you really can feel when the intent is, I'm really not trying, I just really am asking a question to learn versus like, I'm really surprised that she speaks well and that her kids are well behaved. So this slide talks about how to become an ally, right? How do we support people? Because that's really what people want, is to support. And one of the biggest ways that we can support one another really is by listening. And like I said, listening not to defend your position or not listening just so that you can talk next, but listening to understand. And not discrediting another person's experience. I think that's one of the biggest ones in any group or subgroup that may have faced any type of adversity or have not had access to services or opportunities as the majority of the population. Really just want their story to be heard and to be counted as credited and not discredit. Just because it happened to me doesn't mean it wasn't real for you. Does that make sense? I can't think of an example right on top of my head, but just think about that. Just because you've never experienced it and someone else talked about it doesn't mean that it's not real. Like, that is their experience. And we just want to make sure we're respecting people's experiences as they're having them. So things that we should do, don't be afraid if you don't have, the answers to questions. Just be willing to start the conversation. Just be willing to listen, right? Let's show the next generation of young people coming up. Like I said, I have an 18-year-old daughter, and she is, what do you call those? She's a, oh gosh, what is her generation of people called? If you're out there, help me out. She's a,
Are they Gen Z?
Millennial?
Gen
Yep.
Z.
Amber said Gen Z too.
Yeah, they're Gen Z too. And these Gen Z, Amber, if you are a Gen Z, I want to shake your hand because I think these are going to be the movers and the shakers that are going to make the change. So I want to give a hand to Gen Z. I'm a Gen Xer.
That's because us Gen Xers raised good Gen Zers.
All right, I got one of those too, Amber. I got a millennial too. He's 26. So you guys are on the cusp with those Gen Z. But I say that to help say that in each decade, in each generation, we're faced with something, right? Like, I never would have thought that at 47, I'm 47, that my 26-year-old and my 18-year-old, we would all be witnessing and experiencing what we witnessed and experienced in 2020 and in 2021. I can remember hearing my parents, who my father was well older than my mother, talk about the civil rights movement of the 60s. And gosh, did it feel the very same. And for me to be able to be in several generations with my children to witness that was quite interesting. So the key is to understand each other. We just want to understand each other. You know what? We just want to share a same space. Everybody wants to be included at the lunch table and be able to contribute, right? Their thoughts, their ideas at the lunch table, to be heard authentically, to be heard, to be listened to, and then guess what? Take those ideas. Now here's where we're going to start cooking with gas. Take those ideas that come from those diverse voices and use them.
That's a great point. And if I can just piggyback real quick, I want to go back to George's comment when he said that maybe it was a genuine compliment and they couldn't find a good way to say it. There's an open opportunity to have a conversation. If they made a compliment that maybe Shawn or myself or whoever they were speaking to were offended by it, say, wow, that's interesting. Why would you say that?
Mm-hmm.
That leaves an opportunity. So then they go, oh, and then they can say why they said it, like dig a little deeper. Maybe they have some insight as to what led them to say that, or maybe they didn't. But that allows us to share space to have dialogue and conversation and come to an understanding.
Good point. Good point. And I'll tell you, there are other backgrounds, but because, Qu'ran and I are both female, we come from a female perspective. And because we're both Black women, we come from that perspective and that experience. But we have friends who are part of the LGBTQ plus community that are not afforded the opportunities that I am, or that you may be. So there's a lot of learning and growing that we all can do, and just recognize that everybody does not have the same access that we do. Because there's a difference between opportunity and access, but that could be a different Humankind series. But I just want you to kind of plug that and keep that in your pocketbook. So we want to make sure that we are understanding each other, and we can only do this through a continuous, intentional effort to look at this world through someone else's eyes. That's it. That's really what we want to do, because I can look at the world through eyes of a mother, eyes of a woman, a heterosexual woman. But what if I took the time to look at the world through the eyes of a friend who may be transgender or may identify as a different sexual orientation or different sex? I have no idea, what they face in their life. And for me to say, oh no, you don't face that. How can I say that when I wear my own boots, right? You have your own boots. If you only wear bog boots, which I love my bog boots, if you only wear bog boots, and a person who wears construction boots 12 hours a day, talk about how bad their feet hurt. How am I gonna say, no, they don't? No, they don't. I can't, because I'm not wearing construction boots for 12 hours a day, right? So just take those little things and just kind of think about that as we go through life and have conversation with other people. So here's your call to action. And I want to say thank you for thus far for all the people who have been, adding to the chat and adding questions and providing resources. Here is your call to action, okay? All this information that you've heard tonight and some of the conversation we've had, explore your personal and your professional thoughts about the information that you received tonight. Really challenge yourself to think about, what was said. Try to think outside the box. Really try to really put yourself in a different pair of shoes than the shoes that you wear every day. When you look in the mirror, you could be white, male, and 45, okay? Try to be white, female, and 22. Try those shoes on, right? Find somebody and say, hey, tell me about your life. Tell me about your experiences being 22 and a white female. Hey, going in to get your car fixed, right? Versus a white male going to get his car fixed at 45. Trust me, they treat men and women different. We go in and get our car fixed, right? Try that. Try on a different pair of shoes. Go shopping, right? Figuratively, and try on different outfits to see how well they fit. And then have a conversation about what that felt like. I had an opportunity to participate in a poverty simulation one time. And it was quite the experience. So you get this script and they really encourage you to play the role. I was a 10-year-old little boy, I think. I had parents and I had a little sister. Make the story short. I tried to do the best I can with the role I was given. I want to tell you, at the end of this hour situation we debriefed, I was exhausted. I was crying on the inside because recognizing that, yes, I come from a middle class family. I live a very middle class kind of life. I can go where I want to go when I want to go. I can buy what I want to buy when I want to buy. But guess what? There are people who do not live that way, whose parents don't talk to their children when they come home. Some people don't have enough food in the refrigerator. Some people are faced with domestic violence when they come home. We just don't know what people go through, right? And so I just want to encourage you to start in small groups. Start with small groups of your neighbors, your friends, your family, and just start exploring your thoughts about different people. And then ask yourself, why do I feel that way? Why do I feel that way? What bothers me about this? Because it's not the other person. They're just trying to live their best life too. They just want to be invited to the party too. But there's something in us, if we would be honest, that bothers us about other people in those demographics and those groups. And that's something we got to fix in us. And once we recognize that, and don't be afraid to do that. Once we recognize that, that's how we grow and we be better. And now we can contribute in a more meaningful way on our jobs, in our classrooms, with our families, and with our friends. So I really want to encourage you to really do what I call some soul searching and figure out, why do I have such a problem with that? Or why do I have the inability to accept certain things? And then, you know what? Journal. You may not feel comfortable at first to even be honest to share that information with someone, but journal it. And then when you're ready, share your journal with somebody. So here's where we say thank you for being in attendance tonight, for hanging out with us, for accepting the invitation to our party. I'm grateful to be able to have this space, one, to share with my co-presenter, who is a personal friend of mine, and thanks to Renee and her department at Shore Community College for picking up a series called Humankind. And I'm not sure how you found us, but I'm glad that you did. And thank you for all the participants for adding and contributing to tonight. I'm grateful.
Extremely grateful. And thank you, Christopher. He thanked us for being gracious hosts, and he said that he is surprised how nice we have been. We're not hostile people. We want to create understanding. One of my favorite quotes that I was hoping I was going to get to share with you guys comes from someone very special to me. And it says that we need more light about each other. Light creates understanding, and understanding creates love, and love creates patience, and patience creates unity. That I live by. If I could have it tattooed on me, I would. I do believe that we need more conversation with one another. We need more small round tables, as Shawn mentioned. We need to put on different people's shoes and understand that it takes all of us to make up this great country, where we do get to live freely, and some more freely than others, but we need to open those doors so that we all can have certain freedoms and rights and opportunities and access and abilities. So thank you guys again for having us. We would love to carry on this conversation. I believe that Renee has you guys emails. If you'd like to start conversational groups in your community, we would love to facilitate and just be a part of the movement series that opens up not just the community in which you live, but your own personal community and your own personal eyes. Thank you guys so much for spending the evening with us, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. So it looks like we do have one question in the question and answer, and that was, do you feel that statement at the end of one of our own to be more detrimental overall? So I'm not quite sure. Can you pick up on what that means?
I'm not sure if I understood understood the question.
Yeah, so it says, and if you wrote the question, please feel free to maybe rephrase or type it in the chat. It says, do you feel that statement at the end of one of our own to be more detrimental overall?
We may need clarification from the person who typed it because I don't know that I understand either.
But I'd like to open us up for any other questions. If anyone has either questions they want to share or experiences that they want to share with us. I know we've heard some great stories from Qu'ran and Shawn this evening, so I'd love to hear some of those. I know that there's a lot of diversity here at Shore Community College, and one of the things I really enjoy is that we have such a diverse age range in our students. You can have a classroom with a 14-year-old student who's still enrolled, and a 70-year-old student who's just coming back to school. And I think that's one of the great things about community college is that we get to see all of these different viewpoints across generations. So that can be really fantastic.
I absolutely love college campuses. There's so much rich culture, and especially in some of our older institutions, and it just makes you sit there and go, "Wow, I'm sitting in this space where the buildings say 18 whatever." And I think that people were speaking on collegiate levels, and there were open minds and people sharing knowledge in this space hundreds of years ago is just amazing to me. And then at the community college level, like you said, there being all sorts of students, people who are lifetime students. Shawn and I like to call ourselves lifetime students. I'm always looking for an opportunity to learn more and read more and do more and probably talk more. Too much.
That's part of what the Humankind series is about, is lifelong learning and being open to everyone in the community. That's the other great thing about community college is that there are no barriers to entry, right? So you don't have to have a certain GPA to come here. You don't have to be at a certain reading level to come here. We want to help everyone and lift everybody up. So yeah, that's really, really important to me. I really appreciate that about community college.
Well, thank you again, and hopefully you guys use our email. Send us emails if you'd like to have ongoing conversations. Shawn and I are open to the opportunity and open to discussion. And thank you again for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's been a blast.
If you have any other questions, so
what a cool party for a Wednesday night.
Well, thank you again so much to everyone for coming and to our presenters. And this is actually our last Humankind event for the semester. So we will see you again in January. Hope everyone has a great night.
All right. Good
Thank
night.
you.